Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences and the Department of Surgical Sciences in the School of Veterinary Medicine.
Hi, I'm Freya Moat. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Veterinary Medicine, Department of Surgical Sciences, and also the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences as well.
So my research predominantly focuses on glaucoma. So in people, glaucoma predominantly affects an older population. So the prevalence or the number of people affected increases with the age of the population. So I study that from a molecular level and looking at things like the genetics of what underlies glaucoma, all the way through mechanisms that are responsible for increases in intraocular pressure, which is the pressure in the eyeball is what regulates the health of the eye. And when we have high pressure, that's when many patients will develop blinding damage at the back of their eye, involving the retina and the optic nerve. So I study that both in cell cultures in a dish, in the lab looking at the genetics of disease, and also by contributing to studies that some of my colleagues in the ophthalmology department do in human patients as well, using knowledge that I've gleaned by looking at my veterinary patients.
My interest spans from interest in aging and how age relates to susceptibility of a multitude of diseases, and one of the main focuses is really retinal decline. We know that vision declines with age, and that also then predisposes people to diseases like age-related macular degeneration. So we're really trying to start to understand how the biology of aging compares between our pets and our humans, because we live very much in the same worlds, especially our dogs. They go for walks with us. They perhaps swim in the lake a bit more often than we do, but they certainly often eat the same food as us. They drink the same water sources, and so a lot of their exposures to perhaps age accelerating disease risk factors is higher than perhaps an animal that lives in a laboratory. So we're really starting to leverage our understanding of the pet population and how that might actually help us to quickly understand age-related disease in people. It takes about 60 to 80 years to age a human, as opposed to one of our pets who really ages perhaps a little bit more rapidly. So we may be able to really leverage that quickness to really understand more about humans and predict perhaps some better treatments that might be effective in people. So I joined UW-Madison in January of 2020, so really it was an interesting time to move into a new institution. So it's been a challenge, but I think from the challenge has risen some very interesting ideas. And so we've been very lucky to really start a project in collaboration with some UW-Madison researchers who have been looking at human aging of the senses and brain for a number of decades. And I've been able to work with them to get access to some of the human health information, but also to survey those humans as to their pet ownership and really start to understand the health of the pets. And our ultimate goal is to compare the health of the pets and the health of the humans together. And I think the pandemic really made me think about that because of the huge effect that the pandemic had on human health, and also the increased relationships that I think a lot of people had with their pets during that pandemic. So I think without the pandemic in place, it may have been a slower progress to get to this point, and I'm really excited. We just got a small piece of pilot funding, both from the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences last year, and also from the Nathan Shock Centers at the NIH, to do some studies looking at the metabolic aging of pet dogs in this population. So I'm really excited for the next year or two, and hopefully the pandemic will continue to be a positive rather than a negative.
Something that has really struck me in the past year, in addition to the challenges obviously, is personally I feel in a way that I've sort of arrived as a scientist and finally sort of gained some recognition as a scientist. Both Freya and I did our PhDs, mine a few years before hers, both at the University College London, where we really were fortunate to work with really high-powered scientists. But very few veterinary ophthalmologists really have the opportunity to pursue the level of research that we're able to pursue here at UW-Madison. And for me, seeing my name on publications that are co-authored with with clinical colleagues, including Dr. Yasmin Bradfield and Dr. Terry Young, has been really gratifying to see that some of the things that we have done for some time in our veterinary patients have actually informed some practices that might be really valuable, for example, in pediatric patients with glaucoma. And for me personally, it was a real honour to be appointed as a permanent member of an NIH research grant study section. So that really is quite an accolade, and I kind of feel like I've arrived as a scientist after years of being just the vet. So that for me, I think is something that I'm really quite proud of in the past year.
Well, and it's something I think that I aspire to. I mean, I'm certainly behind Jill in terms of timeline, but I came to UW-Madison because of a lot of what, you know, Jill had told me, but also what I understood about the culture here at UW-Madison. I think it's integrated in a way that I think is written down on paper in some institutions, but is truly walked in at UW-Madison. You know, I can cold email someone from a different department and kind of expect a response, and you know, during the pandemic I only had email, but now I could probably go and walk and meet those people, and they're enthusiastic and excited to hear what you have to say, and they value you as an input from a scientist, but also from a clinician. I think they see veterinary clinicians as clinicians in a way that's meaningful. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of leverage what UW has to offer in the future, and pandemic aside, I think that will get more and more important as time